Yeah, I'm Jackson. I have zero experience with carpentry.
I studied at a school for historic preservation in Boston and learned about how things were built, 250 years ago.
There's a long way to go. I'm nowhere near the top. Not that I thought I was, but there's so much more to do out there.
Welcome back to the Passion for Craft podcast. Today we're going to do a little bit more shop talk with the guys. Last week, Brent just dominated the conversation, so...
I didn't get a chance.
I
kept trying to talk, and he like,
just
hey,
kept cutting you
hold
off.
on.
Yeah.
Let me finish.
He was mansplaining.
I've got more.
Yeah.
Back off.
No. We had a really fun conversation. Kind of turned into a conversation of production versus custom, and how do you do that? Is Brent going to turn into the very thing that he hates most?
Yes, that's
on
the
this
question.
earth? All for money. But yeah,
Root of all evil.
Yeah. So this week, Richard, we want to talk about how you are never going to give up the custom work. No, I don't know, but we want to talk about the jobs that you have. A little more shop talk.
Yeah. I am right now currently working with Whole Homes on the barn dominium project.
That's a great project.
Yeah,
Really.
I know
excited
you
about
love your
that.
barn
Yeah,
dominiums.
big fan of barn doors.
But this is like the barn dough to rule all barn doors.
But let's back
The
up a
one
little bit. You were and we've talked about this before, but you basically marketed to homeowners,
Mm-hmm.
right, for a long time, and that was your world, and it was burning you out, right? These are your own words.
Was
Yeah.
it burning you up?
Yeah, well, I think, it
never
was.
heard
It was
you say
burned. I was, for sure. I was getting burned out on it. I said that multiple times. No, I'm just kidding.
I just wasn't, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
You
No, I'm
talk.
just-
It sounds
Do
like
you want to participate and listen?
I'd like to try, but
So, and you were just telling us before we got on this thing how you plan to dominate the homeowner market. What is that conversation?
Well,
What is that?
the homeowner market isn't really something I think people are after.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, and for good reason, because it's a lot of logistics, driving here or there, all these little tiny jobs that a lot of people just don't want to mess with.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you're starting out, it's a good place to be. So I looked at the market by doing a Google search, crown molding, wainscoting, this area, Dallas, Fort, and there really was like two guys really marketing to homeowners. A lot of the carpenters who work for you, they don't even have web pages. They don't even have
Right.
social medias.
Right.
They're just, hey, we have a relationship with this builder. And
that's crazy to think about, but that makes sense.
it is crazy to think about. I remember my mind was blown. I talked to this carpenter on a job in Dallas that we were helping them on, and I looked at his van, no phone number, no website, nothing, and I
It
was
was just
like,
a white van. It said free candy on the side.
yeah, and I was just like, how do you stay busy? He's like, well, we work for, it was Coates Homes. He's like, well, we work for Coates Homes, and he has us on this house, and we go to this house. I was just like, wow, that's crazy. But that is typical. I was non-typical, working direct for the homeowner. So what I did was I just said, hey, I'm going to make a website. I'm going to put myself out there like a business. And it worked.
Yeah.
Capitalism worked. I just made something and then took off with it. And it really wasn't hard to do, just because, even now it wouldn't be hard to do because there's no one really trying to do that.
Yeah.
So which is better?
I like working for the builder better
Because
of the kind of logistical nightmare of working for homeowners, of saying like, hey, I've got my dog chewed up the window stool. Can you come fix it? So I'm like, okay, there goes. How much can I charge for this, really?
Right.
And I even would tell people like, do you have anything else we can do? Because for us to come do that, it's not even really worth it.
Right.
I'm going to have to charge you a lot to make it worth my day to go do it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they would say, well, I need it fixed, so just come do it anyways, charge me whatever. But there's just the logistics of it. Like, it's a nightmare. It really is. So I'm constantly like, we are a 2-man crew. And I would be like doing jobs with John, and then I'd be like, hey, finish up this job. I got to go measure and talk to these 3 people. So it was all in one day. I remember one day we drove around all of Dallas and North Dallas, and we stopped at like 7 houses and just looked at all these different jobs. And some of them
was that quoting it or banging them out or?
No, that was quoting it
Okay,
only.
cool.
Yeah. No, we can only do like one job a day.
What percentage of jobs that you quoted back then were you getting?
Like 100, 99%, 100.
Which is why you said in that previous episode, your buddy said, raise your prices.
Yeah, my friend, another YouTuber, VCG Construction, we were
Shout
talking,
out.
and he was like, well, we were talking kind of like this. How much of these jobs are you getting? I'm like, all of them. He's like, you got to go up in your prices, man. Like, what are you doing? So that was a light bulb that went off with that one. Yeah. So, yeah, I like working for the builder way more just because I feel like it's another thing is the builder is often more educated. I could say that I haven't worked for anyone really other than you guys, but I've worked for like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And they are more educated than the homeowner in every case. You guys are, obviously an exemplary version of that. But, yeah, the homeowner is just like, you're not going to really get to do anything fun. I feel like,
I think I feel like the homeowner thing, we've had this conversation before. They, take advantage of you, and they don't have appreciation for your skill. They don't have appreciation for your professionalism.
Certainly.
And so
Yeah.
I know that some of the comments around our team is, Richard's great. He says he does what he says he's going to do. He shows up. His work is really good. He cares. The homeowners like him, right? And so
You can stop blushing. It's
you
okay.
you make us look good,
yeah.
right? You improve us. And so, as a builder, you're wanting to bring the best team that you can to your client, right? You want people to, shower and have a decent truck and clean up after themselves, right?
I mean, what does he mean shower? You mean literally take a shower? I know what you're talking about. There's some rugged freaking
there's some
guys
rugged guys out there, and there's they're not really people you want in your job. If a guy doesn't take care of himself, physically, there's a high likelihood he's not taking care of the work he's doing.
I agree.
I think I have one subcontractor, and one of the designers described him as Pigpen. Remember, not in a good way. Well, kind of in a good way. Pigpen would walk. We're talking about Charles Schultz and Snoopy and Charlie Brown. Oh. And he had a friend. You didn't know.
The one who had like the cloud around him.
He had a cloud around him. When he'd walk and there'd be these lines of a cloud around him.
That's just funny.
And the designer said that, he's like Pigpen, and he would show up, and then out of this dirty cloud would come this magical, beautiful piece that you're like, how in the world does this guy produce this? Because he's, his shop was dirty and still is. And, he is an artist though, right? He is that artist person.
I was gonna say there is this small archetype. Like I feel like in construction it's harder to find it more often, but like there is that archetype of person who The Big Short had the guy Michael Burrow or whatever his name was, is just doesn't care about anything but the thing that they really care about. And it kind of sounds like this guy is that kind of guy.
It is. That's true. And the guy I was describing on these jobs would be the guy who fell backwards into construction, right? Who is nearly going to prison, and has probably been thrown in jail a few times, and is tatted up on his body, and there's beer cans strewn in the back of his truck, and just but he's a decent carpenter. Usually they're a framer. Sorry guys, if you're a framer out there,
Shout out to our framers.
There are stereotypes for the rougher crews on those jobs are the framers, and they're guys you don't want in your job. And so the whole point was that
we love our framers.
You
out there.
show up and you are professional and talented. You know what you're doing. You're respectful and
clean shaven.
That's
tats,
a
gray
plus.
hair.
Well, my dad always told me if you don't finish high school, you can finish concrete. So there's always that. No, that's actually a concrete joke.
That's a funny one.
Concrete guys tell a lot. But.
That's funny. So you are. I just wanted to go back, just remind people of where you were, what you'd come from, and I thought it was a funny comment that you're like, I ruled that market, right? And so
Yeah, and people loved us because of that. And I think even in that market, you had those pig pens, you know.
Yeah.
And I would see those guys, like a lot of times we would come and correct what they did. Like a lot of our work was like some Yahoo off the street bought a miter saw and started a carpentry company, and they're like, oh yeah, we can do this. I mean, I can show you all pictures and stuff of some of the stuff we've taken out, where then they work with us and they're like, it's what you said, like, you know, we form a relationship with the homeowner. I have people constantly calling back and saying like, hey, we moved, or hey, you know, whatever, we want you to come do this thing. And now I just tell them like, we're just really busy right now. We can't do it.
What is their reaction when you say that?
Like they're sad. It's because there's a hole there in the market. I know like what we talked about, I don't know when the episode was, but when you stop doing custom, there's a hole there. You know, someone's got to fill it. And, you know, and this hole isn't really something I don't feel like a lot of people want to fill, you know, because now that I've seen the build side of it, I really don't want to go the builder side. I don't want to go back to that homeowner side, although I will. Like, I mean,
but you, and I think partly it's because you have found a professional network, right? There's people who care as much about building as you do. They very professional. They understand what you're quoting. They understand what you're doing. They appreciate we appreciate you being there, and so that's a nice environment to work with. Work in, right?
Yeah, and I remember one of the first jobs, the other thing is like when working with you guys, I don't talk to the homeowner. I just like, I know where I stand in the world, in that world, so I just don't talk to them. One of the ones that we worked for was just talk to me. You're very talkative. Yeah. And I remember telling him like, I love your house. I love the architect who built your house, and like this is an amazing place. Right. So, you know, and he was just like, after that, he was like always come up to me and be like, hey, what's up, dude? How you doing? So it was cool just to kind of form that relationship, but understand the boundary, like, you know, sure. I don't know. I feel like you got to know where you stand in the world. So there's part of me who like misses talking to the homeowner, but the other half is like, I'm glad I don't have to deal with them anymore, you know, like that type of thing. But it can go either way.
So tell us, you know, so now you were saying earlier that this is the fourth project you've worked for us, the Barn Dominium project. I think you said that fourth.
Yeah, there's been like...
It's a barn dono?
What did I say?
You said a barn dominium project. I thought it was just like a really nice barn, but we've been
calling you call it a barn dominium.
Yeah, we call it a barn dominium.
That's funny.
Yeah, so there's been a handful of things I helped y'all on. I was just like, wherever you need us, you know, just tell us. But yeah, there's been little things and some really cool things. Like my favorite thing I think we did for you is the Palladian window restoration.
Oh, really?
That was really cool.
It's a cool one.
Yeah.
Why did you like that?
Because I never really did exterior stuff. So I got to learn a lot about flashing, a lot about the wood, a lot about working on the exterior outside of a home. I got to do something that was like so far back into history, Palladio, you know, like that. It was really cool. So
that's neat.
And I did the whole, well, you know, shout out to John, but our team, 2 guys, we did the whole thing. Right. Like it was all rotted out. Stuart's like, hey, replace it. Yeah. Like, okay, what we did, we took pictures, measurements, wrote it all down because we wanted to put it back together. Exactly the way it was. So we made like a little, you know, schematic, like a Lego, you know, instructions, like this goes here, because we didn't want to screw it up. Right. So when we were done, it was rewarding to take the scaffold down and like look at that and be like, whoa, that's
we did that.
Cool. It's restored.
That's really
and I
neat.
got to stab it with the chisel because it was all right here is extremely soft. I mean, look at my chisel just going into that. What the heck? Mushy.
Yeah, it made that weird sound whenever you stabbed it.
Yeah, it was so strange. It sounded like stabbing into cake or something.
Yeah. I have a question on the homeowner side thing. Sorry, I know we jumped ahead a little, but coming back to that homeowner thing, you're talking about not having to deal with them anymore. I just can't imagine, and I know you've told a bunch of the stories on the podcast before, but of working with a homeowner who is like sitting in their house watching you work. Like, is that how it worked every time or like most of the time?
No, I would say 90% of the time they're like, all right, let me know if you need anything. Yeah. I'm going to work. Or I've got to go take my kid to do this.
Yeah.
we'll be around, or a lot of times they wouldn't even they'd be out of town,
Right.
and they would say the key's under the mat.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So-
high trust, I feel like.
But-
Is that normal?
But probably, yeah, that's really normal.
Cool.
But probably 10% of the time you have people who are really interested in like what you're doing, and like it could be for several reasons. Like, I just want to see how it's done.
Yeah.
Maybe they're a DIY type who was kind of intimidated to take this on. So they're like, I would have done it myself, but I just don't have the time. And they're watching, which is fine,
Yeah.
but it wasn't bad really. I mean,
Cool.
it was nothing. I wouldn't even say it's an issue of
Sweet.
them watching or doing anything. But when I said that, I don't like kind of part of me doesn't like talking to the homeowner. Like, it's nice to not. It wasn't really like saying anything negative about them. It was just like, cool. I show up. Project manager says we're doing this today.
Yeah.
Do it. And then
they're the one who's dealing with the homeowner. They're the one who's engaging
yes,
with
they're
all
dealing
the-
with everything.
Yeah.
They're dealing with the builder, homeowner, designer, all the trades, organizing the logistics of the job. So it's nice to
I'm
just
sure that stuff is nice to not have to deal with.
yeah. So it's nice to just be like, here's what you're on today, do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm very task oriented. Like those, like we talk about doing custom jobs where you're reinventing the wheel. That's as fun as it is. It's frustrating because a lot of it's standing around talking, and it's like that phrase at the end of the day, when everything's said and done, there's usually more said than done. When you're doing stuff like that, you feel like you didn't accomplish much.
Yeah.
But those conversations need to happen, or how you're going to figure out how to put this together.
Yeah.
So
this is the first big bid job you've done for us.
this is the first big bid job I've done. Period.
So walk us through. So guys, just so you know, we're this big Barndo project. We are. Richard has come out. Him, Tom, and John, and
His crew.
his crew, right? And so we had a mandate by the homeowner. Hey, get these costs figured out. We want to hit X, and so one of the big variances was trim carpentry, and so we didn't have enough money into it. Okay, and so you guys bid it, and we had to get prices from other trim carpenters, tried to walk them through it, and then but walk us through kind of this job, the first big job you bid, everything
Wait, what
else.
do you mean by you didn't have enough money into it?
In the budget,
The budget that we built for this client, we did not have, because here's what happened with this client. Typically on our projects today, it is more than just a homeowner and us, right? There's a designer, there's an architect, we contract out engineers. Sometimes there's a lighting designer.
So who builds the budget?
The builder, we do.
Okay.
So, but what happens on nearly all our jobs is that as you get into it, especially with the remodel, you go, hey, while we're here, what about if we did this? What if what happens if this happened? What if we did this? Or when you start the project, the designer comes in, gets inspired by something. Oh, by the way, we were with the client down in Houston or over in France, and we saw this thing. We'd really like to incorporate this. And so these jobs evolve. They're fluid. They're not set in stone. And so we had an initial budget for what we thought we were going to spend on trim and finish out, and it's now more. Okay, so because of the scope creep, because of design changes and things like that, going from paint grade to stain grade wood, because what happens is, for instance, in the basement of this thing, we're using Pecky cypress. Pecky cypress is a type of cypress with a fungal growth in it that causes it to have these, these open pores, and so it looks like wood that's been beat up, and so it has character in it.
Yeah.
And so we have to build a sample. We have to put that sample up. It's got to be the right size. You're tweaking samples. Then the homeowner's got to come in and look at it. Then the designer has to look at it and says, "Oh, we want this finish on it." So there's a number of steps before you finally know what's gonna be in place.
And that's all eating into the trim budget.
All eating the samples that you're building, everything else are eating in a trim budget. And so we were low for the number that we put in there. It had grown. The number of things that we were trying to do had grown, and so we didn't have enough money in there. That's what that means.
I get you now.
And from what I understand, like it was just, since it was a barn dominium, it was going to all be basic. But as I guess inspiration hit with the designer, they were like, "Oh, let's do this and that," and that's why there wasn't enough.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So
you were bidding this job. That's where we were. So.
Yes, yeah. So walk us through bidding it and trying to put. Were you anxious you weren't going to get it? Were you thinking about it that way?
No, I wasn't thinking about it that way. I was just thinking, well, here's what it would take. I talked to Tom, who we talked about whenever we were discussing, in the last, I don't know when the episode was, but Tom's a very experienced trim carpenter. He's been doing it for 35 years. So I used him as a consultant to say, because basically all you're doing when you're pricing something is, and that quote includes the materials.
Yeah.
So we're saying, all right, casing this door, here's what we're going to need material wise. Here's how long it's going to take. Mm-hmm. And then we go through every item like that.
Yeah. So
I have this big chunk of offcut Windsor 1 that I went down one day and wrote everything on. And I was like, I mean, this is the highest thing I ever bid, but I'm sitting here looking at this and yeah, that's going to take a while. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm buying the material. I mean, here you go.
What he did was a stick estimation, and so there's two ways to estimate, right? You can estimate by the square foot. You can estimate by the actual stick, and so he did a stick estimation. He said, I've got this many pieces of trim that go around this window. It's going to take me this long to do that. Here's what the material costs. Here's what install costs, and came up with a number for trimming out a door or a window. Mm-hmm. In estimating things, you can do things by the square foot, by time and material, by, stick estimation, time and material, and
cost plus.
Well, time and material ends up being a kind of a cost plus.
Okay, I just am saying words.
And so, but yeah, no, there's different ways of doing that. He did a stick estimation, which was an itemized estimation, another way of saying it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of homeowners and other people love that estimation because they know
makes sense.
They've got everything there, and if they're thinking of something, they're like, okay, well, I know that's not in there because everything else is itemized.
Exactly.
Yeah. As opposed to saying. What happens is a trim on this budget will be,
X per square foot.
Yeah, because the other guys, just so you know, they gave us a weekly rate, okay? But there was an hourly, weekly rate that they were giving us. I'll have this many guys on your job for this many weeks, and it'll cost this much, right? The problem is they are saying, we don't really know how long it's going to cost. We're just, here's an estimate. So their estimate may have actually been less money.
Yeah.
But if it went over, we are going to pay for it.
Right.
And the likelihood on our jobs that things go over is likely.
Yeah.
And so, because we're talking about a lot of detail and a lot of everything else. And so, both the other carpenters, we felt like we're like, no, we can't, we don't trust those numbers. We don't trust that thing. So just letting you know, we think we had another guy that might have been less, but the homeowner was pushing us, I want someone less. Now, point being too, everybody that we were bringing on that job had the quality and the ability to do it.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. There was no one that we were talking to that didn't have the ability to do it.
Yeah.
And so, but knowing this other guy, knowing who he was, having worked with him before, I was like, this guy's going to screw us. It was literally our conversation. It was like, we don't trust his hourly estimation and weekly estimation.
So you're saying this guy is going to screw us. Do you mean the whole company, or do you mean the owner of the house, us?
Well, we're responsible to the owner, so us. Us, the builder, okay. Right? Because he's going to put us in a bad situation.
Who incurs the cost if you pick that guy? Does that make sense? Like, does the homeowner incur the cost,
right?
Or do you?
No, the homeowner is a cost. We were a cost plus builder, so we would the homeowner would ultimately pay. But here's what happens: if I go back to the homeowner and say, we're going to get it done for this.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last thing I want is to go back to them and say, yeah, it's going to cost more.
We did not get it done in time. It's going to cost you more.
Yeah. Because it makes me look incompetent. It makes me look like I don't know what I'm doing. So that's the last conversation I want. And so I'm looking for a surety. I'm looking for, confidence to be able to look at the owner and say, this. Now, the other thing that we do as builders, the whole company does, is if I screw something up, I'm not going to charge the homeowner for that. Right. And so for this particular instance of trim and estimating the total amount of trim, there are going to be things that are going to come up that I want to be able to itemize and say, look, we did these 5 things, and this is why it costs more, which is a much easier conversation than to go to the homeowner and go, yeah, it's going to take a week longer and cost $13,000. Well, why? I don't know. It's just taking longer.
Yeah.
Right? Which one's better?
Yeah.
Yeah. With mine, you're like saying, like, here's my number.
Right.
No matter how long it takes me. Not that I'm going to take.
Here's something the designer added. Here's something the homeowner added. Here's something that and so it's. Look,
also,
our customers know that things cost a lot of money,
right.
And so that they're not scared of that, but they want responsibility. They want
they want to know where the money is going.
They want competency, right? And so if I come back to them and say, yeah, it's just costing more, I don't look competent.
And it also protects me because I'm like, well, if it's not on here, I can add it on there if you want to do it.
And I mean, you're carrying some risk because if that door doesn't cost you $1,500, it costs you $1,800. It's on you, right? And so
I don't come to Hull and say, oh man, I really messed up. I've lost money on jobs out in the homeowner world too.
How does it work? But how does it work for you if you don't get it done? So like you've done a stick estimate, new words.
New to me too.
Yeah, it's exciting. But so you did your stick estimate, and then let's say your stick estimate.
Just so it comes from the thing where you have a set of plans and you're counting sticks in the wall. Yeah. You're counting studs in the wall, and it's a stick estimate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. That's where that term comes from.
Well, so you have your stick. You know how many pieces that you're going to have, and then I'm assuming you have an hourly, daily rate, and you've estimated the job as we're going to take this amount of time. I'm assuming.
Exactly.
Okay, and then. From there, let's say, I don't know. I can't think of a common mistake on the job because I haven't been on many jobs. But let's say the door guy delivers you sapele wood instead of longleaf pine, 2 that I know offhand. What does that look like for you? Because now it's going to take you longer to do the door, and your time has been extended, and you messed up. Do you eat that cost, or does he eat that cost / the homeowner eat that cost? Like, how does that work?
Well, I feel like that one wouldn't be because I was delivered the wrong thing. I don't know. I need to think of it better.
I guess I don't have a better something goes wrong on the job site.
Let me answer that.
It takes longer.
It's his.
Okay.
He screws something up. He's paying for it, right?
Like you install something wrong.
That example it won't happen, right? Because we're using Windsor and we've got our thing figured out.
Windsor's great.
We can come up with a weird scenario that
I guess I'm just trying to think.
Looks like, well, who's going to pay for that? What happens at that time is that Richard and Brad, my project managers, sit down and go, and we just look at it and go, what's fair, right? Yeah. This is what happened. A tornado came through and knocked things down,
That's a better
right?
example.
And so and blew the all the trim off the outside of the house. Who's paying for that, right? Well, it's probably insurance. It's probably things, but
I got a good example.
Okay,
let's say
you install something.
I install something base. It's a 1x6 base is what we're using there, and the homeowner walks through and says like, "Oh, can we do a 1x8? I don't know, something designer." Yeah. In one of those situations, then it's obvious that they're paying for it.
They're paying for it. Okay.
I think in another situation, like a crazy situation, like a tornado type thing, it is just a discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happens if? No, this is kind of funny because one of my friends is going through this, but well, he's not going through this exactly. But let's say you install something wrong, like you don't do it, you don't do a good job at all. Okay, and you just like completely mess it up,
butcher it. Yeah.
Yeah. You, John, and Tom all come into work drunk and are just kneeling. They don't drink, so.
But we let's just say it's
Something
not up
crazy.
to the standards.
Exactly.
And they see it and they're like, hey.
So is that you incurring that cost?
For sure.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's so interesting to see who holds the beak, like in each step
here's
of the way.
what's here, and I think it's an irrelevant conversation because he's not going to install something
Wrong.
Yeah.
Well,
In other words, that the things that another trim carpenter might come in and think is acceptable, he wouldn't think is acceptable.
Right.
For instance, 45s don't really meet very well, right?
Yeah.
Gaps in the trim, just things cut too short. Maybe saw marks still seen on the edge of a board or something like that.
Richard doesn't do those things.
Those are things that cheap trim carpenters who are used to banging it out don't really care.
Yeah.
Well, the painter's going to come and take care of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not a conversation we're having. But that's a conversation a builder could have with a trim carpenter saying, look, this isn't acceptable.
Yeah.
We have a standard on this job. And then that becomes a big stink because the trim carpenter's going to, well, what the hell's wrong with that? Because, the painter is going to caulk that.
Yeah.
It is going to look fine. And the builder says, that's not the quality that we're going to have here.
Right.
Now, that's a relationship that probably not going to go past that job, but who pays for it? That's a good question. If that trim carpenter is really stubborn, he's probably walking away, and the builder's paying for it to get it fixed right.
Well,
but,
if you're asking me, then I will. And I've told you this before.
Yeah.
If you see something you don't like, tell me, I'll fix it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm charging more for this.
But you're so unique, like where you care about like such a good job and quality work, and you like looking back and going, look at this fun thing we built, which is why it's so, like, because I could totally see the other guy, the pigpen guy, not
well, we had a guy on another job who. And I'm not even going to say anymore, but he was a young carpenter who was trying, and he just didn't have enough experience, and he left joints like that, and we basically parted ways or didn't give him any more work because his quality wasn't there.
Did you say come back to us when you're more experienced?
We did.
Yeah, it's never like, oh, you suck, and
Yeah.
I think it's
No,
always
I think
just
he had aspirations to be able to do the work and then got on our jobs and realized he didn't really quite have the ability and skill and experience to really do that, and so that happens.
yeah, and I think
punted his coverage or right.
the first thing I remember when I did that first project with you, I was like, I was so nervous. I was just like, if it's not good, tell me.
Yeah.
I'll go
We'll
away.
still be friends. I don't care.
Yeah.
If we're not ready, we're not ready.
Right. That's
So-
cool.
So, now we've gone back to kind of you're now doing this job, right? And you bid it. How's it going? Right? Are you hitting your numbers? Are you being successful so far?
Check in with the boss.
Is it things where you're meeting with your team and going, hey, this isn't really working right. Let's try this.
Can we talk about this off camera? No, I'm just kidding. Starts to get nervous. Oh crap! No, it's going good. I think some of this stuff has taken me a little bit longer than expected, but some of the stuff is going quicker than expected. So
Interesting.
it's like a balance. Like where I'm looking at something like, oh no, maybe I should have.
Can you
put a
explain to
little
me
bit-
like what you?
Yeah,
what
give
is
us an
taking longer,
example.
What's
Can
not
you think
taking
of
longer?
Yeah, like I would say, well, I guess the silo is taking a little bit longer than I thought, and then we're gonna be starting
work
on.
are
So
you
the
guys doing at
so
the
the
silo?
silo is a 16-foot circumference
something
diameter.
like that. Yeah,
Diameter or circumference is a big difference.
it's a diameter,
Diameter.
like across, right?
Yeah, and
Whoa.
so all the way across,
Lot bigger.
it's basically an historic silo. We built a new historic silo, and he's wrapping
fake.
the
New
inside.
household soul. Yeah.
Yeah,
Fake story.
He's wrapping the inside with a vertical beadboard with a cap that's requiring a radius work, and that would make sense that radius work would take longer than you thought.
Yeah, and then on some of the other
Are you bending wood?
No, we're so the tongue and groove is locking together,
Yeah.
and then we're using other stuff to round it. But some of the stuff I'm like doing better on, I guess I should say, is like taking less time. Is like the high windows, because I was just like, man, this is gonna take forever being on the
get up
scaffold.
there,
But
and
what
yeah.
we did is we just have a system where I'm measuring and then calling it out, and John's handing me the pieces.
Yeah.
So like
You're not going up and down a ladder.
Yeah.
You're not. Yeah.
That's huge.
But we are having to like move the scaffold around, so it's taking some time. But I don't know. It's going good overall.
You know, it's curious to me that you know, thinking about those other guys that aren't even bidding it, right? They're not giving me an estimation and stuff like that. That's got to be a product of the market and just having too much work.
Too much work.
And those guys going, look, things are really busy right now. I don't really have to do that kind of bidding because, you know, we got plenty of work. And you know,
for
just
sure.
go use somebody else because, you know, I've got 3 other jobs, but here's our weekly rate. And they've gotten to the point of just being, you know, here's my weekly rate. We're really fair. Let's just go. And they're competent guys. They know what they're doing. It's you know, going back to estimation real quick, there is a value in getting to the point where you've done it enough and you can look at it and go, you know, if you put $3 a linear foot to this stuff, then you pretty much got it figured out. Or, you know,
you know how much the materials cost. You know how much you're
because as a bill, as a you know, how long did it take you to put that estimate together?
like 10 hours.
Yeah, a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a full day lost, right, doing estimating.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas, you know, let's say you had 8 builders calling you, all looking at different projects like that thing.
That would be my life.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you'd spend all your time. And it's the reason why guys like Dan Parrish has a full-time estimator
Yeah.
or 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, they're always looking at stuff, always have to estimate stuff. But you know,
Crazy.
and it's why those other guys who are, you know, one-shop people, you know, one-team people and aren't as big as Dan are like, look, here's my weekly rate because they just don't have time to estimate. And so anyway, it's just
Yeah, and even sometimes I feel like, you know, they might be like, man, this is far out here in the country.
Yeah.
Like, oh, do I even want to
Right.
come out here? You know, because
the drive time is part of your
it's
day.
a barn dominium,
Yeah.
so it's out in the country. So that could play into it too. Maybe they're just like,
so you were talking about you know, the wins and losses, and like we have wins and losses on all our jobs,
Oh,
right?
for sure.
And you just some things you do really well and some things don't. How far on into the job are you? 20%, 50%, 30%?
I would say probably right around 50. A lot of my 50%. I would say a lot of my line items on there, because I separate everything. Like if there's baseboard in this bedroom 1 baseboard,
Yeah.
bam, bedroom 2, that stuff's gonna fly.
Yeah.
But that can't get done until the floor goes in. So a lot of that's just, you know,
Are you all
It's-
doing the floor?
no.
Okay.
No, we don't do
So you
floor.
just got to wait for someone to go finish the floor, sand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like right now, we're got all the doors in,
Yeah.
all the pocket doors. We have to build a slab for one under the silo.
Do you
'cause
like
that one-
pocket doors? This is just
I
an
do.
aside. Really?
Yeah, I do like them.
Do you know how to make them so they don't work or they don't not work?
They don't work. It's all in the hardware.
Really?
We used Johnson soft close hardware.
Do you do
Soft
top and
open,
bottom?
Soft close. Top and no, the bottom is a little guide track. So you kerf a slot in the door, and it slides into that. Like this is the door, and then there's your.
I've never met a pocket door I don't hate.
Because you don't have that good hardware.
Because it's crappy hardware.
We have one in our house, so
Yeah, we got really. Our house was built in the '60s, and that door has not been changed. And it
sucks.
They're plastic wheels on a aluminum track filled with dirt, and they rattle and roll, and they squeak, and they're noisy.
like it. The wood
It's like
just bang, 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 bang in between the
no
in the
track,
pocket.
right? And so
No track on the bottom.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, well, this is really good. You
Okay.
can go out there and open and close a few.
I would love to.
Yeah. So we got all those in.
Yeah.
That was this week. We got a lot of the casing on. We've got a lot of the windows trimmed. So I would say 50%. I would say a big part of that thing is pretty basic, but a big part of that, the other 50 is the Pecky Cypress thing. You know, that's
When are you
that's
going to
a
start
lot.
on that?
Probably in 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
How does wait? Sorry, this is more just logistical questions. How do you make it round in the what's it called silo?
Well, you can use flex, which is what we're using. You can use.
What does that mean?
You can bend
Flex wood?
You get molding profiles that are in resin,
Yeah.
basically.
It's a flexible resin, like a rubber, that is shaped like a molding, right? So we call them flex molds because they are
Flexible mold.
You can order them. A lot of the companies will make them their standard profiles in that flex mold, and so.
Yeah.
Now, let's just talk real quick about that. So we got a circular silo, 16 feet in diameter.
Yeah.
Isn't it 16 or is it 12?
You know what? I never even measured across it because I didn't have a reason to.
It seems too big. Maybe it's 12. Anyway, well, it's probably close to 16. Anyway, so we've got these moldings, a cap molding, and then a molding that goes underneath the cap.
Yeah.
Okay. How are you going to build a circular molding, like a bed molding? So we had I think those moldings were like $4,000 or $5,000 each, and we had to compare it to, because I think the total flex molding package was like $12,000 or $15,000.
Yeah.
Well, how else do you do it? Well, you could run it in wood, but to run it in wood, you have to basically cut the shape out and then run it through a molder, a circular molder that's going to shape the thing on a piece of wood. And so both are very time consuming and both are expensive. And so it's the reason why circular work is the piece that he brought up and said, we might it's taking a little bit longer because it's harder, right? Everything requires more work.
It's cool. I was curious how you did it because in my mind, I'm like, how do you even get it flush against the
on some of it
thing?
We just got our flexes in the other day, but before that we already started trimming these doors out that are in there, and the doors are on a radius. So the trim is all wood. We were able to kerf the Windsor, so we just cut like a kerf. Do you know what kerf is? Like where you basically take a board and you cut like a
kerf is the track. After a saw blade goes through it, it leaves a kerf in the wood.
The cut is called the kerf.
Yeah.
So basically, you make a cut for this one I did every inch, half inch deep, and just cut.
Yeah.
So the board, when you pick it up, is kind of like a noodle.
Bend. Yeah.
So for that, all the doors are all wood.
Yeah.
It's the other stuff that's going to be flex. So
cool. Wow.
Yeah, so that takes a while, to do that.
But that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And then there's bent lamination in there with some of the beaded moldings. So bent lamination is kind of a similar. You just rip a bunch of strips and then push them into place and glue them and pin them in there. But yeah, it's looking good. Like it looks really cool.
It's going to be an awesome project. So you're halfway through the project, right? When will you start looking for new work? Right, you probably got another month out there. I mean, as you plan your team, do you have enough work that in 3 weeks or 4 weeks when you're done with this project that you immediately move them over, or is your team small enough where it's just like, go take a break for a few days, guys, and let me go find something. Let's find our next deal.
Well, remember, I have YouTube still, so when we are off, like my ideal.
This is what I want to know. So
my ideal thing is, if we're not working with you, I'm making videos at home. Mm-hmm. So that's and then Tom is a tool inventor, so he doesn't need the work. Yeah. He's 61. He's pretty much retired. He just likes helping. He likes making the extra money. Yeah. So it's I'm in a very unique situation. Like I don't know who else on the world is in this kind of situation. So I'm not really looking for anything until you're like, hey, the Thistle Hill's ready, or whatever you have.
How long could you go without work?
Well, before they switched up this stupid algorithm, I could have went like a month, but probably not much now. Maybe like a week or two. Yeah, but there's a trade-off though, because during that week I'll be making videos daily. Yeah. So then my revenue goes up. Mm-hmm. So it's just
Do you ever let's talk about cash flow, right? I mean, are we paying you whatever we pay you every 2 weeks?
Yeah. So I've been actually getting a payment like every week for some reason.
Good.
It's good. It's fine. The cash flow is fine.
But do you have like a lot of businesses struggle with cash flow, and so
because you don't have a ton of crazy overhead, do you?
Yeah, exactly.
Because the YouTube, they pay monthly, right?
Yeah, on the 21st every month.
So they're paying monthly. You're getting, weekly. But I'm just thinking, you said I can only go a week or so. That's a cash flow thing typically, right? That means that cash is run out. I need to go find something to do. Mm-hmm. Is that an accurate statement? Or
I think that is accurate. Yeah.
But
I've never had that problem where I haven't had anything for a week, because I can always find something to do.
Homeowners too.
Yeah. Well, I have.
How do you find something to do?
I have my website still out there. If I need to make money to pay bills, I have a number of emails that come in on a week.
I just wanted to say that is a really unique and a wise way to set up your business, that you would have that kind of
almost like freedom.
Yeah, almost like freedom to one, to pick and choose. And I guess you've been doing this long enough that you've been doing this. You haven't been in business 2 years.
Yeah,
where you're still trying to build up clientele. And everything else. Yeah. So you've been doing it long enough, but you've got that. But I just think that's an enviable position. Yeah,
and also my team, it's really just me and John still. Tom is a huge help, but he doesn't. It's not like he's like, I need work. Mm-hmm. He doesn't need it at all.
Yeah,
him and his wife are both retired. Let me just read this to you because it's interesting. This was yesterday. Message on direct to my website. Hey, I have a 2-year-old house and the builder did not do a great job with a lot of the trim, mainly baseboards and quarter round. We are wanting to either have repaired or replaced. There are quite a few areas with this issue. Thanks. And then I said, hey, sorry to hear that. Do you have any pictures? I'll see what's going on. And she includes the pictures. I'm going to show you guys this because this is what I could go be doing. Mm-hmm. If you said, hey, I don't have anything for you right now, I could go repair all this.
Are you making better money now than you make before? Like, can you like, if your goal was to make $2,000 a week, I've just made that number.
Yeah.
Can you make that anywhere? Can you make that?
I can make that anywhere.
Yeah.
I can make that. I would say it's about the same. Honestly.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's about the same, and that might be mismanagement on my part. I don't know, but yeah, I feel like it's about the same. And I feel like since I went up on my pricing, I don't get
as many offer requests.
Yeah, but I'm not even looking for work out there right now because you've kept us busy. So when I was and I went up, like before we even started working with you, hey, you need to go up on your prices. You told me that, and I started to. I did get rejection, but I also got some exception, which maybe then I wouldn't have to go to 8 different places in North Dallas that day.
Yeah.
So I'm not really like I know you are really like a numbers, stats, rational guy. I'm kind of just floating around type guy. Like, well, yeah, well, let's go do this.
Well, I only am because if I didn't, I wouldn't survive.
For sure.
Right. And I have had to become that person because it's, and I have to understand my numbers, or the size of projects that we're doing and the money that it costs is too great for me to, I can't I can't cover those things. I can't, my payroll, is $100,000 a month. Right. And so, I don't have, a bunch of $100,000 bills laying around, that I can just cover a few months of work. And
so stopped making those a while ago. So,
and so it's just,
they stopped the $2 bill.
Yeah. It's Travis.
So there's no float. There's no, that's crazy.
So you can see where my questions are coming from. And so,
I'm like thinking like, he's thinking deep on these things, but
this is a question.
Yeah. But I'm thinking about the guys out there who are trying to run their businesses.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing from you is that you've set your business up, that you've got really, 2 or 3 revenue streams, right? You've got the revenue stream from the homeowners, you got the YouTube, and you've got these build clients that you're working for.
But I would say I never get the builder and homeowner at the same time. So really, it's
I understand.
Okay. Oh, but I got what
you
mean,
could
though.
jump over to that homeowner revenue stream and tap into that if you wanted to. And so I think that, it's a little bit similar to what my business is that I've got the mill side and the home building side. And, there's been years that the mill side has carried the home building, and there's side the home building's carried the mill side.
It is
so
like that.
alternate revenue streams is a wise way to set up your business if you guys can do it out there.
Just diversify.
Yeah, diversify and just don't be a one-trick pony.
And then part of our diversification in the homeowner side is we do the painting, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's a freaking lethal weapon. Oh, you
Yeah.
do the painting? Yeah, I can charge you for the painting too, you know? Like nobody's doing that. I mean, there are,
And
but
especially if you're out there, like at the job site, you could probably crank that out pretty quick too.
oh yeah.
Like it probably wouldn't be
The
that
painting
much, but-
takes longer.
Does it
Painting,
really?
For sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all the prep and everything, but
Because you gotta wait for it to dry. Is that what the long part is? Or?
No.
I
the
mean, you
prep.
got to mask, you got to sand, you've got to
Oh,
caulk,
that's
you've
what
got to
I thought the
fill,
prep was
you
like-
got to prime, you got to sand again, you got to. I mean,
That's the prep. The
it's
painting,
psycho.
the actual painting can take,
Seconds.
a tenth of,
Oh yeah,
of what it takes.
I could spray. I know you're not a fan of spraying, but I love spraying. I spray a project, and we always joke like I spray a project in less than a minute, literally
That's
done.
crazy.
Just
That's the
but-
quickest part. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Whereas if you brushed it, it might, it would take a lot
Yeah.
longer than that. And that was one of
still
the comments
shorter
that
than the
client had the other day.
Yeah, we had a comment on the video where we did a recap or react to New Build Old Soul. And what did the comment say specifically? Do you remember?
Well, he was talking about you're chasing after all of these details and all this stuff, but then you spray painted the woodwork.
Yeah, you didn't hand paint the woodwork.
And then you hand paint, and I said, "You're exactly right. that is an old soul thing that 90% of our clients wanted hand brushed.
that one didn't.
That one didn't.
That's crazy to me to think of, because coming from the finish, I'm not big into the finishing world, but I love finishes, and I love the fact of like finishing my own stuff. It's like not like that today.
Well,
at all.
but you think about when the spray equipment came in and became, most dominant, what, in the 80s or something? I mean,
don't
it
know.
wasn't in the 30s and 40s
Yeah.
that you had spray
For
rigs.
sure.
Anyway, just taking a tangent here. I mean, paint was hand mixed until the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s,
That's
right?
crazy.
There was painters showing up at job sites in the 60s and hand putting in the umbers and the blacks and the whites into a
Wow.
thing to get the right color. So
That is crazy.
the whole idea of the shaking of the thing with that's a 70s, 80s, 90s thing. It's not it hasn't been around forever. So
Yeah.
the automotive finish, right? That finish that guy was talking about, where everything's sprayed and looks like a car,
Yeah.
right? Is actually not the way a lot of people that want an old soul
Were
want their
cars
house.
ever hand painted?
I thought about that. I got to
They
think
must have
that
been,
they
right?
must have been that they must have been.
They
And
had, because there wasn't the
They
big.
came out in the 20s.
they didn't have the spray thing. Yeah. 1911, 1912 was when the Model T started taking off. And so
Who knew?
I'd have to look at that and see, because I thought the same thing. I was sitting there going, can you imagine having a car and seeing the brush strokes of the car in the paint?
Be really cool.
I was like, surely not, but
Maybe they use like a flat,
Well,
because the flatter
oh,
your,
yeah.
and
well,
the
and,
madder your paint
and
is.
they use levelers. I mean, they had the chemical things
yeah,
to
to
do,
gel it out.
Yeah, to gel it out. So
Yeah, so I'm a spray guy. Sorry, I know I'm not gonna be painting for y'all, but,
yeah,
but
Hey,
I
you
just
could have
love
painted
it.
for that house.
Which one? Oh yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah. No.
no, I don't. That was that high gloss, which is like a lacquer, I believe, right? Like a lacquer finish.
yeah.
I'm not messing with that.
So, what's next for you, Richard? You've kind of pivoted in your business, from going to, this homeowner route. You said you like the builder route. Let's say, everything dried up at Hull, and Lord, please don't let it dry up. What would you do? How would you pivot? Where would you go?
I think I would just continue doing what I've done, taking the advice that you've given me of if everything did dry up with you, maybe reach out to other builders, continue to do the YouTube thing, continue to just do what I know. When you're 34, you have 5 kids, a mortgage and bills, you kind of painted yourself in this corner where you don't have like a lot of freedom to be like, let me go try something new.
Sure.
So I would have to I have no shame going back to the homeowners, because to me, all I care about really at the end of the day is just like enjoying life. And like, I don't have big aspirations. I think we've talked about it.
No, I wasn't talking about. Tell us your dreams. I was sitting there thinking practically in your build world. You know how you did it, and that's what I'm hearing.
Practically, I go back to homeowner stuff. Talk to builders. I continue to do YouTube, and Ashley's going to start. She's taking a real estate test like in a few days.
Sweet.
So she's trying to do that. She's all nervous, and I'm like, you got it. You know, if you fail, you try again, you know? Mm-hmm. So she's going to help me out financially with that. Because really, it's all, you know, I'm passionate about this stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
But the finances do matter. Mm-hmm. So I have no shame going back to do inferior stuff to pay the bills, you know? So the kids are getting to an age where she can actually... We can leave them alone. So she could step out of the house. It's awesome.
Cool. But I think too, I think you have grown as a businessman and as a craftsman, right? And the kind of things that you're looking at. So you would be, you know, you can go back to the working with the homeowner. I'm not sure you would, right?
I wouldn't want to, but if I had to do it, I would.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, the biggest thing that I've learned from you working with your company is that I can do anything. I can do anything. Like I when I came in here the first time, I always reference it. I'm like thinking, what the heck?
Could never do that.
But now I look at it and I say, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can do anything.
And that's where I want everybody out there to get. I want them to be able to say, there's nothing we can't do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We talked about my shop. I mean, that was a badge of honor for us for a long time. On a previous episode, we talked about my shop. That was a badge of honor that we could do anything. I mean, anything from the past, carved wood, you know, stained wood, cut wood, you know, any wood, any material, anything, we could do it.
And you did it.
And we did it. And it was just like, it was kick-ass. It was awesome. And as a craftsman, I loved it. It's hard to build a business doing that. And so
kick bottom for all you kids out there. So.
it was, you know, it was like, felt like we had achieved the pinnacle of craftsmanship and quality and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was just, there was a part of me that was, that was, you know, a badge of honor.
Yeah.
I think I just unlocked a reason for
Epiphany.
my pet peeve. Yeah. I have a huge pet peeve when people don't try. And I'm just getting like, it's because he probably beat that into me growing up. Because
you guys have that attitude.
You keep saying like, well, try it. Go do it. Go achieve it. Like the only one limiting yourself is you, is kind of the things that you're saying about a lot of these builders out there. And I get so angry with a kid when they're like, oh, I can't ever do that. I'm like, come on, dude, you can do it.
Yeah,
like,
you would have hated me.
Give it a try.
No, I'm serious. I generally was like a pessimist. And if you're a pessimist, it's hard to convert to being an optimist. So.
I think people that are pessimists, though, are pessimists as a protective thing. Because
fear of failure, they don't want to try to
if I
out.
try it and fail, then I'm a failure. And so if I don't try, and I, you know, then I can't be a failure because, you know,
I never tried. How many things do you think you've failed on over the years?
So
He's
many.
like, how much time you got?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, my point with that is that you wouldn't be where you are today without those failures.
There's a great quote by Albert Einstein about failure. I don't know the quote, or else I'd say it, but there is one.
Thanks for sharing, Jackson.
Here, I'll Google it.
Yeah.
It's great. But it basically just says, like, you'll never know how great you can be unless you fail a buttload of times.
Well, I mean, that's the whole Navy SEAL thing. That they push you to a level where you think you can't go on, and then you go on, and you're like, oh, I guess I can do more.
Yeah.
And that's when I think about that. I think about my business, and you know, sitting on my couch those mornings, going, well, this is the last day of my business. You know, it's over after this.
Yeah.
And you know, then the Lord allows it to keep going, and you're like, oh, I guess
I got the quote. It's failure is success in progress. I think it's great.
Failure is success in progress.
That
Yeah,
is what
You gotta keep failing until you finally succeed at something. And so
yeah, that's a great quote.
I think it.
Never
I remember
heard that.
hearing that. I used to have really bad fear of failure, but I remember hearing that and being like, wow, that's so helpful, because you know, you're just learning. You're just like growing as a person and getting better, and so
That's my new favorite quote.
it's a good one.
I love it.
It's a really good one. Okay. Thank you guys for watching this episode of the Passion for Craft podcast. hopefully this was a good one. A little shop talk action for all of you guys.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate it. See you soon.